IBM until the early retirements in the 80s. But even far before that, he's made fireworks. In fact, he's one of the greatest firework makers in America. They have a competition each year, and he won it so many times they just gave him a Life Master Award so someone else could win it. But, so he's kind of an odd duck. My first job was scratching his feet. He would have a little plastic scratcher with little teeth on it, and he would pay us kids to scratch his feet. He couldn't get enough of it. Of course, I thought that was totally normal. I mean, doesn't everybody scratch their dads? Well, I did tell someone in my 20s that I grew up around loud explosions, and they said, "Carl, you are a loud explosion." At age 10, it was my job. My dad would do the fireworks at Rochester, Minnesota, home of the oil clinic, and a big IBM plant. And we'd have a bunch of steel tubes, and the bottoms would be welded, and they'd be in sizes of 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, and 8-inch. I don't know why they don't make 7-inch. But my job at 10 years old was to get the burning embers out of the bottom of the tube, because these shells that you put down into the tube have a little charge of gunpowder at the bottom that blows them up into the air. And if there's something burning in the tube down there, and you put it in there, well, when I did my own fireworks displays later in life, I'd say, for safety, only put parts of your body over the tube that you can live without. So at age 10, I have barbecue tongs, and when the last shell goes off, and they go to another site, so they switch between the two, I have to run up there, reach down in the tube and pull up the burning, or that doesn't happen, hands over here, oh, they're coming back, and I go running, like jump behind the big, down the embankment, rolling down, and there's going on behind you. I was very good at art as I was growing up. My first job out of high school, while I was still in high school, was at a Shopko, which is kind of like a Kmart. And they had something called a print-a-sign machine. This is, you didn't just go to the computer, type something out in Word, and laser print it off or jet print it. It was a print-a-sign machine. It was this big apparatus that had a big steel box with a bunch of holes for every letter, uppercase and lowercase, and some punctuation. And to make it work, you had to take a card, put it in there, and it had like the colors of the store in there, and you had to take the big plunger and go, like if it said cat, C-A-T, so you got to know how to spell. You had to be strong enough for it, and you had to do like look, L-O, and you run it over the rollers again to get it inked up, O! And then the great thing about it was, they didn't have room for us once the store got up and running, so they put us back in the defectives. And not to say, I felt so. After that, a friend and I, we started a laser printing business, because we had a laser printer and we had some Atari computers that, kind of like a Mac, except a little cheaper and junkier. And we would laser print pages for $1 each. And that, back in the day, you had your dot matrix printers, which are, that's how it went. It took a long time and it didn't look good. We used to call it the 65, 52 junky printer. It's just sort of like somebody chiseling out a piece of rock. And then I got a job in Northfield doing the fireworks displays there. That's my father grew up in Northfield, I grew up in Rochester. He still does the display there. I think we're going on year 40 now. But I had agreed to do this show in Northfield months beforehand, and I also helped a friend move out to New York from Minnesota. And we went out there in a truck, and for some strange reason, she had to go back to Minnesota, so I was left out apartment sitting. And I said, well, sure, I'll do this, but in another 3 weeks, I have to be back in Minnesota to do this, my first fireworks display. So, and she didn't come back, and she didn't come back, and I said, so I just went out in New York, Manhattan, I stuck my thumb out, and I started hitchhiking back to Minnesota, which has got a lot of stories in its own, but I won't go into all of those right now. But I just barely made it back to Minnesota. I hitchhiked all the way to Milwaukee. I was almost on the far side of Milwaukee, and they brought me back to Milwaukee. The cops found me on the highway, brought me back, and I had to get a ticket from Traveler's Aid. But I finally got back to Minneapolis. Got back to my car, I had parked there for months, it was still there, thank God. And I had to go and borrow a friend's VW microbus that sometimes it didn't start. Anyone who's had one knows that. So you had to like run and jump to start it. I had to go to Northfield to where they have an old like solitary confinement jail cell that was rotting. And that's where they had the fireworks each year. So I had to go and get the fireworks there and bring them and dig holes with post hole diggers, and it took all day long in the sweltering sun. But we did. We had a fireworks display. Everything went great. Never burned anybody, never blew anyone up, and that's the greatest accolade you can have in fireworks. If it looks good and nice, but just don't kill anyone. After that, that one time I had a job simultaneously in the process of getting married, working at Service Master, cleaning floors and houses and furniture, working with people who had head injuries, and going to school for massage therapy. I've been in a play, another little career there in public theater. And I would always work on people's shoulders in between, you know, when we weren't up on stage acting in this one, when there's chiropractors saying, you need to go to school for this. So like I said, I was getting married, head injury job, and these were in you know, like going from Rochester, or going from here to Boston 2 or 3 times a week on a motorcycle during the summer. And just dodged the weather perfectly. In fact, one day during my service master job, the boss calls me up. Oh, it was like Easter, and they had a fire, and the worst thing from a fire is all the water damage you get when the sprinklers put the fire out. It's like you get 10 times more damage from the water than the actual fire. That's our modern day. He said, so Carl, you want to come and help us out? And I said, hazardous duty pay, which meant double pay. All right, I'll be there. And we had to take bags of sewagey carpet that we'd ripped up and were frozen, and we had to like throw them down an elevator shaft, and I reveled in it. Well, twice in double pay I reveled in it. Then I moved out to Cape Cod, and I had the toughest job I've ever had being a home dad. And my daughter is now 14, just graduated from 8th grade with just about straight A's and everything, and glowing, you know, so I must say I think I did a good job. I hope to continue doing a good job. Since being on Cape Cod, I was a massage therapist, but I slowly started to transition into doing renewable energy, installing solar panels, small wind turbines, and I even got into a group called Clean Power Now, and they were people supporting the wind farm, the controversial wind farm. There was a public hearing up at MIT about 4 years ago, and there were a lot of people that were for it and a lot of people that were against it. And mostly it's like, it's the greatest thing ever! Oh, it's going to destroy everything! So instead of getting up there and just rehashing what had already been said, I did this. How many regulations can the power plants flaunt before they're forever shut down? Yes, and how many particulates must fill our lungs before a clean source can be found? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many wars must we fight to claim? How many wars must we fight to defend the oil fields in a distant land? Yes, and how many lies will they tell in their crusade before we stop the blood spilled on the sand? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many wind turbines will it take to replace resources that leave the world unstable? Despite what big business and Dick Cheney would have us believe, pollution is 100% preventable. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer